Hello, and welcome to the third video of the CodeGenHero tutorial series. In this video, we will set up our solution that will house our Blazor CRUD application. Open Visual Studio and select Create a New Project. The template you will want is called CodeGenHero Enterprise Architecture for Blazor, .NET 6. There are two ways to find this. First, simply type CodeGenHero into the search bar at the top of the window, and second, click the Project Type drop-down and select the new option that became available, CodeGenHero, which will filter the list of templates down to the tagged project template. As with any Visual Studio project, provide a solution name and a folder to place the project in, and click Create. Next, this wizard prompt will appear, asking for the database connection string you want your CRUD API to point at, the connection string for an identity server database, and the username and email address for the admin account that will be created on the first run. In the previous video, we created our sample artist site database, and if you are following along, the default connection string populated here should be valid with no need to change it. For your identity server connection string, you do not need to have one set up in advance. Instead, the application will create a database schema for you at the specified location if it cannot find a pre-existing one. When you are satisfied with the values entered, click OK to finish creating your solution. In a few moments, you should see the README file for the solution open with instructions for how to proceed with the scaffolded solution. Before we finish, we'll go over what the different projects in the solution are for. The API project is a web API that will be used by your application to access the database, abstracting access logic into a separate application connected to through an HTTP client, rather than trusting the WebAssembly application distributed to users with DB access. The app project is where your Blazor application and its components live, where it can be used by another project in either a browser-ran WebAssembly client or a server-side Signal-R client. The client project is the WebAssembly client that will be distributed to users who access your application, and ran on the user's local machine. The CodeGenHero project isn't compiled or referenced by any of your other projects in the solution, but instead is used to store configuration files used by CodeGenHero in relation to your solution, separately from compiled code. The IDP project is an Identity Server 4 application which will act as the authentication host for on-premises account logins, providing JSON Web Token user authentication to your Blazor and API applications. The repository project is where your entity framework entities in DB context will live, to be accessed by the API project. The server project is the Signal-R client which will run and render your application on a web server. This is a legacy approach to Blazor but has better compatibility with older browsers or computers that may otherwise have trouble running a WebAssembly application. Lastly, the shared project is where code used across multiple projects should live, such as data transfer objects that both the API and Blazor application should be aware of. If you run the solution now, you should be greeted with three windows: a basic Swagger document for your API, a default front page for the Blazor application, and an identity server document. In the next video, we will go over using the CodeGenHero extension itself to rapidly scaffold out a basic CRUD application in a fraction of the time it would take to make it by hand.